Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad.
Delayed at the dentist and now you're late for school pickup. You need a free now. Need to take the dog to the vet before lunch. Should have gotten a free now. Trying to get 4 kids and their baggage to the airport. Free now. Sometimes you can't get from A to B fast enough. Download the Free Now app today for quick pickups and reliable drivers, no matter the situation. Less hassle, more hustle with Free Now.
Hey, have you heard? The Mayor of London has launched his latest van scrappage scheme to help tackle London's toxic air. Small businesses or sole traders like me with a polluting van could now get £7,000, which you could use to trade up to a Euro 6 vehicle. And you could get an extra £2,500 towards running costs if you go electric. The scheme is now even easier to qualify for, and it's open to any businesses with up to 50 employees, like mine. So, I'm going to search TfL scrappage to see if I'm eligible and apply. You should do the same. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
There's a new arrival turning up the heat. Celebrity X on the Beach, the podcast, brings you exclusive behind-the-scenes gossip from the show's celebrity cast.
Joey falls in love quick. That was love at first sight, literally.
Each week, we'll be talking with extra special guests, breaking down the breakups and makeups of each episode as it unfolds.
I walk into the villa and boom, I'm straight into an X.
Celebrity X on the Beach, the podcast. New episode available every week after the main show. Listen and subscribe on Global Player and all podcast platforms.
Matt Letizia, what did you make of that performance today?
Well, it really was a game of two halves, to be honest, Jeff. Leicester came out in the first half really...
Letiz?
What's up, Jeff?
Run for it!
What the...
Move over, football. Cheltenham coming through. And Sky Bet are on the charge. With money back as actual cash, up to £10 if you lose on the first race of the festival. Sky Bet. That's betting better. Applies to first bet on first race at Cheltenham on losing singles and win part of each way singles only. Money back as cash, free bet stakes excluded, eligibility restrictions, T's and C's apply. 18 plus, begambleaware.org.
Conversations from Bloomberg Television. Here's Paul Allen.
Saudi Arabia's planned production boost has implications for global producers and buyers alike. Joining us to assess the impact now is Katie Bays, co-founder of consulting firm Sandhill Strategy. OPEC Plus apparently at war with itself. Where do you see oil prices heading from here?
Yeah, OPEC Plus is at war with itself. They're going to war with U.S. shale, something that they've avoided doing since they cut production in 2016. The floor is kind of up for grabs because what the market is trying to figure out now is how low do crude prices have to fall to discourage U.S. producers from pumping more oil. We haven't found that floor since 2008, so the question will really be, is $20 low enough? It's a dire situation for the market now to try to work its way out of a major oversupply with demand uncertain as well due to coronavirus.
So finding the floor, one question. I guess another question is, once it's found, how long is it going to endure?
When you look at where oil markets are and what commodity prices are trying to tell you, in a lot of ways, commodity prices can be a vote of confidence in an industry. And I think with commodity prices low and plunging further, that's a good signal that the market is not confident in energy's role long term.
Hear more interviews like this one on Bloomberg Television, streaming live on Bloomberg.com and on the Bloomberg mobile app, or check your local cable listings. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. Oil prices are plummeting while equities plunge and currencies and bonds see wild moves as the world heads for a full-blown price war in crude, and panic appears to grip financial markets. S&P futures fell about 5%, triggering trading curbs. Right now, they're down 145 points, down 4.9%. Dow futures are down 1,255 points. NASDAQ futures down 410. The DAX in Germany is down 6.6%. The CAC in Paris down 7%. 7%, and the FTSE 100 down 6.8%. 10-year Treasury up 3 2/32. The yield 0.45%. Yield on the 2-year 0.31%, and the 30-year yield 0.86%. NYMEX crude oil is down 23% on $9.53 at $31.74 a barrel. COMEX gold is up 0.2% or $3.60 at $16.76.60 an ounce. The euro 1.1434 against the dollar, and the yen 102.22. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Now here's John Tucker with more on what's going on around the world. John.
Good morning, Karen. Mayor Bill de Blasio says New Yorkers should avoid the subway at rush hour, cycle or walk to work, or stay home and telecommute. New York City has 13 confirmed cases of coronavirus. Senators Ted Cruz and Paul Gosar will undergo self-quarantine after attending a conference with someone who tested positive. Cases in Seattle and its suburbs have jumped to 83, and 2 additional people have died. Ahead of tomorrow's primary contest, Kamala Harris has endorsed Joe Biden. The Reverend Jesse Jackson has endorsed Bernie Sanders. Sports, Knicks beat the Pistons. Next, top the Bulls. Celtics lost to the Thunder. Wizards fell to Miami. The Kings lost to the Raptors. And on the ice, the Sharks fell to the Avalanche. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm John Tucker. This is Bloomberg. Nathan.
Okay, John, thank you. It's 6:19 on Wall Street, live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studios. This is Bloomberg Daybreak. Good morning. I'm Nathan Hager. Let's get you set for the trading day and week ahead with our global Bloomberg News Roundtable. For that, we're joined this morning by European News Director David Merritt in London. In New York, Joe Weisenthal, head of our Americas News Desk, is with us. And from Hong Kong, we're pleased to have Bloomberg Senior Executive Editor Madeline Lim. Let's start with you, David, because when the markets opened in Europe this morning, we saw them heading close to a bear market with this oil price war just adding on to concerns over the coronavirus.
That's right. Woke up to historic moves across all markets this morning, prompted mostly by this huge crash in the price of oil. That was after Saudi Arabia launched a full-on price war over the weekend, following the collapse of the OPEC Plus talks at the end of last week. You have to go back to 1991 and the first Gulf War to see such a big move in the oil price. It's rippled across all financial markets. As you said, many equity markets in Europe slipping into bear market territory. The whole of the US curve for treasuries under 1% for the first time, and currencies also a big surge into the yen, for example. So big moves this morning as a result of this, which comes on top, of course, of all the uncertainty surrounding the coronavirus.
And it looks as though, Joe, we're going to see big moves lower here in the U.S., but it's not exactly clear what they'll be because we hit the 5% down limit overnight.
Yeah, basically right away after futures started trading last night, we hit the down limit, and so we are maxed down on the futures. Don't know how much lower we're going to go when cash equity starts trading. One thing you can look at, however, for the S&P is the SPY ETF, which is down 6.3% pre-market. So there are other proxies. It's going to be worse than what the futures are pointing to right now.
And Madeline Lim with us from Hong Kong. One effect of this is a flight to safety. We've seen some really big moves in the yen this morning against the dollar.
Indeed, and with the yen sort of closing in at one point, closing in on its 100 level against the dollar, which is the level where the Bank of Japan and the monetary authorities in Japan are likely to intervene, or thought to be intervening at least, because the last thing the Japanese economy needs right now is a strong currency, given that they had economic GDP data today for the fourth quarter was shrank by even more than initially reported, by around 7% on an annualized basis. Nobody thinks that given the coronavirus and given the market turmoil that this quarter is going to be, the first quarter is going to be much better, which would put Japan technically in a recession. So they're looking at this currency and probably not welcoming its strength right now, Nathan.
Yeah, we're looking at recession indicators as well here in the U.S., Joe Weisenthal. David mentioned that the entire U.S. yield curve is under 1% right now. You got to think that's going to be putting more pressure on central banks globally.
Breathtaking moves in the U.S. Treasury market. Right now, 30-year yield quoted at just 85 basis points. At one point earlier, U.S. 10-year yield actually currently just 45 basis points, falling below 50 basis points. These are numbers that were unimaginable a week ago, unimaginable, and yet here they are pressure on central banks, and you could make the argument that the market is screaming at the government to spend money, fiscal stimulus. They're borrowing for free, literally, virtually at this point. You could argue that is really what the market wants to see.
Yeah, I wonder if there's a question of whether we could start to see negative yield in the U.S. That's been a story in Europe for some time now.
If the right now we know that members of the FOMC do not like the idea of negative interest rate policy. Anything is conceivable, but I think the expectation is that there are many other tools they're likely to try, including more asset purchases, more aggressive forms of forward guidance before they would go to negative policy rates, but you never know.
Yeah, we'll hear from the European Central Bank later on this week, David Merritt, and the big question always for them is whether they still have policy tools left.
That's right. We're already, of course, have negative yields. Benchmark rate is minus 0.5% in Europe. But now many bank economists saying they're going to have to cut that even deeper into negative territory, expecting maybe 10 basis points later this week when they meet on Thursday. It seems they're going to have to do something. Recession risk really looming again in Europe. But as Joe just said, not only calls for the central bank to act, but also for governments to step in with more fiscal measures, some spending to really get these economies moving again when we've got recession expectations now in Italy and in France, in Germany. So central banks and governments expecting to hear how they're going to step in to shore things up at some point this week.
David Merritt, European News Director for Bloomberg News, joining us from London this morning. Also, thanks to Bloomberg Senior Executive Editor Madeline Lim in Hong Kong and Joe Weisenthal, head of our America's News Desk, joining us from Bloomberg's world headquarters in New York City. As we take a look at markets this morning, S&P futures are lower by 145 points. Dow futures down 1,255. NASDAQ futures lower by 410 points. You are listening to Bloomberg Daybreak.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. We are seeing remarkable losses in global stocks, the stock futures, and oil, as plummeting crude prices add to the backdrop of dread surrounding the coronavirus and the specter of a global recession rising. The futures losses today triggered exchange rules that limited declines at 5%. Crude oil is above $32 a barrel after dropping the most since the Gulf War. The circuit breakers triggered the limits today, but they're also leaving traders in the dark as to just how big the losses may eventually get. And for the first time, the 10-year Treasury yield fell below 0.5%. The 30-year yield dropped under 1%. Apple CEO Tim Cook is offering employees at most of its global offices the ability to work from home and called the coronavirus outbreak an unprecedented event and a challenging moment. He told employees at several global offices to work remotely if they could and said the company was working to reduce large gatherings and engage in deep cleaning. Gina Cervetti, Bloomberg Radio.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
Delayed at the dentist and now you're late for school pickup. You need a free now. Need to take the dog to the vet before lunch. Should have gotten a free now. Trying to get 4 kids and their baggage to the airport. Free now. Sometimes you can't get from A to B fast enough. Download the Free Now app today for quick pickups and reliable drivers, no matter the situation. Less hassle, more hustle with Free Now.
Hey, have you heard? The Mayor of London has launched his latest van scrappage scheme to help tackle London's toxic air. Small businesses or sole traders like me with a polluting van could now get £7,000, which you could use to trade up to a Euro 6 vehicle. And you could get an extra £2,500 towards running costs if you go electric. The scheme is now even easier to qualify for. and it's open to any businesses with up to 50 employees, like mine. So, I'm going to search TfL scrappage to see if I'm eligible and apply. You should do the same. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Matt Le Tissier, what did you make of that performance today?
Well, it really was a game of two halves, to be honest, Jeff. Leicester came out in the first half really...
Le Tiss?
What's up, Jeff?
Run for it!
What the...
Move over football, Cheltenham coming through. And Sky Bet are on the charge. With money back as actual cash, up to £10 if you lose on the first race of the festival. Sky Bet, that's betting better. Applies to first bet on first race at Cheltenham on losing singles and win part of each way singles only. Money back as cash, free bet stakes excluded, eligibility restrictions, T's and C's apply. 18 plus, begambleaware.org.
Think you've seen a fridge freezer before? Just look at this LG InstaView door-in-door. Knock twice on the fridge door and you can see what's inside, without even opening it. How cool is that? All LG fridge freezers keep everything fresher for longer with innovative cooling. More taste, less waste. And with all LG appliances, you can save up to £100 when you trade in your old one. Heroes of the home at Curry's PC World. Full terms at currys.co.uk.
From the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio in New York, Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston, Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco, Bloomberg 960 to the country, Sirius XM Channel 119, and around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Daybreak.
It's 6:30 on Wall Street. Good morning. I'm Nathan Hager.
And I'm Karen Moscow. We are just about 3 hours away from the opening of U.S. trading. Let's get you up to date on the news you need to know at this hour. U.S. futures and global stocks are plunging. Circuit breakers for U.S. stock futures triggered trading limits overnight after declines reached 5%. That has us in the dark on what losses could look like at the open.
Well, in Europe right now, the stock 600 is lower by 5.8%. The DAX in Germany down 6.1%. The FTSE in London down 6.25%.
Oil is crashing as an all-out price war breaks out between Saudi Arabia and Russia. Collapse of the OPEC Plus alliance has the Saudi kingdom making the deepest price cuts in at least 20 years. Garfield Reynolds is a market strategist for Bloomberg.
In gold terms, oil is now the lowest it's ever been, basically, lowest since Bretton Woods. So I think we could call this a panic.
And that panic has West Texas Intermediate crude down almost 22% at $32.34 a barrel. Brent is down more than 20% at $35.90.
Bond yields around the world are tumbling. In the UK, two-year yields have gone negative, while yields in Germany and France push deeper into negative territory. Paya Sachiteva is an economist at Schroders.
We do expect the ECB to embark stimulus measures on Thursday beyond even just a 10 basis point rate cut, but likely some targeted measures from SMEs, potentially expanding their current quantitative easing program. But beyond that, we're going to need essentially a bazooka now, I think, to assuage markets in this current environment.
In the U.S., the entire yield curve is trading below 1% for the first time ever as markets expect the Fed to cut rates to zero in the coming months. Richard Jones is an FX and rates strategist for Bloomberg.
There's now roughly another 100 basis points of easing priced between now and the end of the year, with the market pricing about 75 basis points of these rate cuts to happen in the coming weeks. So very aggressive, very front-loaded.
Right now, the yield on two-year treasuries is trading at 0.29%. 10-year yields are currently at 0.45%, and the 30-year yields 0.86%.
And as panic grips financial markets, the Trump administration is drafting measures to blunt the economic fallout from the coronavirus. Here with details is Bloomberg's Tom Busby.
The measures would include a temporary expansion of paid sick leave and help for companies facing disruption from the outbreak. That's according to sources who tell us a small group of officials worked on the proposal over the weekend. The package is still being debated and has not yet been presented to President Trump. I'm Tom Busby, Bloomberg Daybreak.
All right, Tom, thank you. And a programming note, tune in this morning when Mohammed Al-Arian weighs in on these dramatic moves in the markets. The Allianz chief economic advisor and Bloomberg opinion columnist joins us at 8 a.m. Wall Street time on Bloomberg Surveillance with Tom Keene, Jonathan Farrow, and Lisa Abramowitz. Straight ahead, the latest world and national news. This is Bloomberg.
Thanks, Karen. It's 6:33 on Wall Street, and this news update is brought to you by Land Rover. The Own the Adventure sales event is happening now until March 31st. Visit your tri-state area Land Rover retailer for details on the new Discovery Sport. Land Rover, above and beyond. Here's John Tucker.
Nathan, the U.S. death toll from coronavirus has hit 21. As testing increased, the number of infections in the United States has climbed above 500. The National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases Director Dr. Anthony Fauci cautions a vaccine is likely a year or more away.
For now, the answer is not going to be a vaccine. If, in fact, we go into a cycle where we come back next year, then we likely would have some